Welcome back to part 2 on the Miata here. We're doing the 6-speed swap today, so stay tuned for that. Got some good stuff coming up. So I'm going to clean this up before I get it in. So one of the things I'm doing right now is just taking off these sensors and wiring. So I got to get this one off as well as this one here, and then tape over those holes just so nothing gets in. And then gonna go ahead and spray it all down with some degreaser and start shining her up. A little bit of degreaser worked on a good portion of it, but still some residual areas that have some more baked in dirt. So I got this fancy steam cleaner that I'm gonna try out for the first time with a little jet attachment there. So we're gonna see if that's gonna be able to kind of bust through some of that harder to reach dirt. Alright, well, the steam cleaner is kind of fun. I don't know that it's really doing as much as I need it to, so we may just switch to the brass wheels that I have, kind of go from there. Got all the electrical connectors out. This one is, with the cords on the top, is going to be the one that is higher up on the transmission, and then the other one goes right here, and that's going to be the one on the cables on the side of the transmission. The little speedo sensor obviously is right here, and then we've got the shift knob or the shifter input shaft right here. I've also covered. I'm working on getting this one out. I'd like to cover that as well, just for, I don't know, good keeping, but we'll see. It's being a pain. I ended up just taking the dead blow hammer to this flathead, kind of chiseled it around the edge. So clean that up, tape that off, and then we'll get working. I got all the tools out. So I got the Dremel, a bunch of brass wheels, as well as eye pro, mouth pro, I guess, and then ear pro. I may have severely underestimated the amount of these wheels that I'm gonna need. Thankfully, I bought a 5-pack, but yeah, it's got, just on the neck, we already went through one, so I'm not even done with it. I'm running into the issue of the dirt is kind of still getting in the way, so may just take a plastic bristle brush and kind of try and clean up the rest of it. But I mean, shoot, that little bit that I did do, it looks nice. So all of the baffles and ribs are gonna get messy, but we'll do our best. So I went ahead and re-cleaned it, and it looks a lot better now. Took out the fork and some other parts of it just to get it all good. Looks like it's leaking diff fluid from one of these holes here. Now I'm not sure I love the look of that brass brushed aluminum, but kind of already committed, so I'm gonna keep on chugging. I went ahead and did basically the top third of it. Comparatively to the bottom, it looks a lot better. I wasn't sure I was gonna like it. but I ended up just having to go over it a little more. There's obviously still a couple spots I need to hit, but I ran out of brass wire wheels. So I went out and I used 6 just on this top portion. I went out and bought 15 more, so hopefully that'll get me through the next couple here, and I'll kind of update you along the way. So that was an example of just one area. Obviously just did the rim around it, but I just want some sort of like mirror finish, and I just look like, oh, okay, I can see that, cool, time to move on to the next area. But yeah, this is how quickly those wheels get ate up. Still might get a couple uses out of this, but realistically it's just shooting strands now. One of the challenges with this 6-speed is that the speedometer is electronically driven versus the NA here, the 5-speed that we got, is drive-by-wire. So thankfully the drive-by-wire is still going to fit in the same port, but it's going to be inaccurate now because the final gearing is different. So for the time being, that's what we're going to run with. So we have any speedometer. Like I said, probably just going to end up having to use GPS for the time being. But in the future, we're going to do an NB cluster swap, and we'll be able to run the wires to actually get the correct gearing and speedometer on there. So very excited for that. But like I said, I've got to do some more research and figure out exactly how we do that. Thankfully, the Car Passion channel had a really in-depth video on that one. So that's what I'm going to be referencing when I do that video. I don't know if you've noticed yet, but I do like polishing aluminum. This thing was crusty, musty, dusty, and it's better. It's not perfect, but I didn't want to spend too much time on it because I still want to get everything back in. Got the new rear main seal in, as well as swapped over to the 6-speed NB plate. Then I had the bright idea to spray some brake clean on there, and all of that fun painting just went right in the trash. So, oh well. I'm going to get the flywheel bolted up now, and I believe it's 75 foot-pounds per bolt. I'm also going to throw some Loctite on there for good measure. I got the new ground strap O2 sensor, and then I went ahead and put on the plate. It's only 15 foot-pounds for the pressure plate here. One important thing to note, and one thing that I missed, is there's a bearing that's supposed to go in there, because I was wondering why my alignment tool was not aligning. So yeah, this bearing's supposed to go in the flywheel, and that's what holds that, you know, nice and in place while you're getting the pressure plate on there. So do as I say, not as I do, and put that in before getting all that stuff torqued in, because I also put thread lock on all of it, so super excited for that. Well, I got the clutch pilot bearing in, and then all of that stuff that I took off, put back on, and then the only other thing that I had to do was play with the connectors. So the 2 connectors here are the same as the NB, or sorry, the NA. So those you leave on. They are on the opposite side of where they are on the 5-speed transmission, so it was a little confusing. But the ones that has a single connector, it has 2 wires, so you just, you know, wire up the 5-speed, the little pin, push pin connectors, and then that should be good to go in the car now. So then the last thing I'm doing is putting the new seal on the input shaft, and then I cleaned all this up that had RTV on there. I'm going to use the high heat, put it back in, get the fork in, and then get the clutch release bearing on there as well, and then this should be good to be put back up. Mr. Brian was nice enough to get that seal in there for me. So next we're just got to get some RTV, put it on this bad boy, bolt it back up. We'll get the fork installed and then the throwout bearing. The transmission is now finally supporting its own weight. It's all bolted in. I just need to torque all of the bolts, but we're off to the races. Starter is in, and I was able to use all 3 bolts because I swapped out that bell housing plate. So for anyone doing this swap, and you want to use all 3 bolts, have it a little more secure, highly recommend swapping that plate out. I think it was like 20 bucks, so very worth. So yeah, she's all torqued up. The bell housing bolts are 60. I think they were like, was it 49 to 64, something like that. So I just chose 60. So they're all in there, all good. So now all the electrical connectors on the starter as well as the reverse and neutral lights are connected. So these are those electrical connectors I was talking about. Like I said, I had to splice these to fit, but then these ones are direct fit. So when you do it, the one that has 2 fits perfectly. The one that has 1 just needs to be spliced. There is no polarity on these because it is just a switch. So whichever one you do, just pop them both in, you'll be fine. I also got the slave cylinder in. I bench bled the master cylinder, so that one should be good to go. I'm gonna run the stainless steel line, put it in with the yellow there. People say to bleed this one also a little bit before connecting the line. The last thing I need to hook up is the speedometer. Goes right there in that hole behind it. Because this one is for that open diff, I think it's either a 4.1 or 4.3. Don't remember off the top of my head, but the Speedo is going to be inaccurate, unfortunately. Got the exhaust manifold back in while I was working on the master cylinder. I had the fittings backwards because on the website this angle was not to the master, it was a straight, so I tried to put the other side to this one, and this one is sort of bulbous and the other one is flared, so there's no fluid pressure going into the lines. And then when I unthreaded them and tried to rethread them, let's see, yeah, it's cross-threaded the line. So $50 stainless steel brake line in the trash. Super excited. So I got the Speedo sensor all connected as well as the PPF. So it's the 3 bolts there and then the 2 bolts down on the diff. I still have the transmission jack holding it up just in case, but drive shaft is next. So I'm using Redline 75W90 for the rear. You only need about 1 quart. I just like to have some extra on hand, so I bought 2. The MT90 from Redline for the transmission. Cool part about the 6-speed is you can actually just fill it up right from the turret here, because it's not like the disconnected shaft like the 5-speed. So you can actually just pour the full 2 quarts right in there. Make sure you install the drive shaft before filling up the oil, and ask me how I know how. So I'm getting the short throw shifter installed, and one of the things we got to remove is that black plastic bit there. So in the instructions he says just use a little flat chisel, not to scratch the inside, and then split that so you can take it out. So thankfully I had a 3rd bottle of that MT90 that had just a touch left over from when I did the flush on the 5-speed earlier. So I added that to it, and then I went under the car, did the fill plug, undid that, and some excess came out, so that was good. So it should be all set now. Just gonna get all of the braces and those things put back up, and we should be just about set other than that clutch line. So now that we got the fluid all sorted, I went ahead, got that dowel pin out, and then this is the new, what do they call it? Tip bushing. So you just put it on your finger, get it in there. This one's next. You'll put this fastener lube on there. He says conservatively apply it, so not too much. And then these have those slots. They'll go right over the factory dowels, the 2 dowels in the 6-speed, the 1 in the 5-speed. So next up, we've got this wave washer. It's got these dowels, and they're supposed to be oriented the same way as the ones that are currently in the car. So that's great. That's like that. And then this one is going to go right on top of that. And then the one important part you want to note here is that these bolt holes, if they line up or not. So looks like mine are all good. And then we'll actually get the shifter assembly and test fit. And there's a paper gasket on here, and that side should be down. All right, so she's in. I went through the gears, all looks good. So now shiny boy down, the fiberglass up. Just gonna go over here, gonna try and move all these connectors out of the way. But on the instructions, it said it should be right on the face of those bolts. So next we got this guy, as well as the new hardware for it. And this is probably the best thing, a reusable zip tie to put on here once it's on the shifter. That's super nice. All right, so that's all in, reusable on there. I still clipped it, trimmed it down. But next we've got the long insulation tube and insulation pad over those. And then this guy over the shaft. And then we've got our nice Nardi shift knob we're gonna put back on there, which actually is for the 6-speed now. I'm so stoked on this. Interior's back together now. Just a little bit of a gap. I could raise this up, but honestly, not too bad. Shifts through all the gears nicely. Super excited to get this thing on the road. All right, so all the cross braces and everything, O2 sensors, everything is back up underneath the car. The new polyurethane bushings were kind of a pain to get in, but I think it'll be good so they don't droop at all, because there's really minimal clearance between this and that cross brace. So generally pretty good to go. Just cross my fingers, hoping that new line's gonna solve that problem. A week later, I finally got the replacement hose in. They added a thing saying, oh, the straight one goes into the slave cylinder, which was not present on the last one. So great job updating that. Let's get it installed and get this back on the ground. The line is in, the clutch is bled. Time to get the battery back on the final wheel, and we'll drop it back down. All right, I'm a little nervous. Moment of truth. It's been sitting for just about a month and some change. Put some fuel treatment in there, oil stabilizer, so gonna give it a whirl. Oh, she sounds healthy. Good news, y'all. I took it for a cruise. Feels really good. I went past one of those, speed warning signs. It was about 10 miles an hour off. So like I said, the Speedo is gonna be questionably effective. But we'll figure that out in a future video. For now, this one was a success. It's a ton of fun. I feel like squeezed every inch of power out of this little 1.8 between the 6-speed and that final gear ratio. So I appreciate y'all watching as always, and we'll see you in the next one.